All right, Adriel. So I've been thinking about some of the conversations I've had with prospects, and in some cases, I'm actually walking myself to an objection. And by that, I mean, for example, I'll actually bury an objection that a prospect has brought up. Is that something that you've had experience with?
Yeah, I've actually, well, sometimes I've been in client meetings where I'm with a salesperson. The client mentions something and the salesperson kind of like steamrolls them or buries it. Yeah, but we got that handle over here. And it's, you can see it in the client's eyes like, oh yeah, I guess so. Or yeah, I guess I'll say this just to finish this off and not deal with it, but it's not truly dealt with. I think that sometimes you got to be careful because some things really aren't that important and worth talking about. But often
Hmm.
when clients bring things up, there's a reason that they're bringing it up, and digging into it a little bit is probably the right course of action. Just be really specific that you've a heard their concerns, because half of sales is making sure that the person on the other end understands that they're feeling heard, and then B, that you're not accidentally ignoring something that's really important, and they just let you get away
Right.
with it, or let it go, kind of a thing, right?
So to make it concrete, for example, if I'm a prospect and I say to you, Adriel, look, the solution sounds pretty expensive. The one we have right now already is above our budget. It's probably best for you to drill down on that objection, right? As opposed to just say, okay, I hear you. Let's talk about features now, or let's talk about what else we can do. Right.
Yeah, just
So,
trying to like bury it, or I guess asking like the right kind of questions out of it, like, oh, which budget is this? Which department is this budget coming out of? Maybe the budget's coming out of a department that doesn't really have the money, but the solution that you have in mind is actually solving a different department's problems. Like maybe you're selling to marketing, but your solution is something that will solve problems for marketing and sales, for example. So getting a little bit more information, is digging into that and kind of collaborating with the client is typically the right thing to do, and doesn't bury their objections, or
mhm.
just kind of like whenever we get objections from clients, they're not a mountain to climb as fast as possible. They're a nut to be cracked, but it's just a question of like, how do we correctly crack it? How do we correctly get to the
Mm,
answer? Not how do we do it as fast as possible and move on to the next one, and then the next one, the next one, and just try keep hammering through them as fast as possible.
right. Yeah, that tracks with my experience so far. Another way that I found myself, again, walking myself to a no, is actually objecting on their behalf. So, for example, I'll put the idea in mind that perhaps the solution I'm offering is too complicated or something like that, and the prospect is then like, "Yeah, this actually is quite complicated. I don't have time for this." Bam, calls over. I just lost them. And they weren't even thinking about complications. They weren't thinking about migration problems or anything like that.
Yeah, or maybe they would have been fine with like a simple version of the solution or something like that. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, objecting for the client is something that not a lot of junior salespeople do, because they don't know what the objections are. But a lot of
Mhm.
seniors, like salespeople who've been around for a while, oh yeah, I've seen this a million times. You don't have the budget for this, or you don't have the internal expertise for this, and they insert these objections, and sometimes they're wrong. Even though they have a lot of experience, every client's unique, and you have to treat them like they're unique, and not that you can just keep slapping on the same objection handling
Mm.
for each, or in this case, adding objections for clients where maybe there wasn't an objection or a reason to object.
Yeah, sometimes with skill, we think a little too far ahead of where the
Yeah,
conversation actually is, and I think it's really important to know what kinds of problems have to be dealt with in what order and where to deal with them. Not
yeah.
necessarily on the opening call, maybe in the demo, maybe after in the follow-up. Doesn't have to all come out right away in the first 3 minutes of your conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And another one is, if someone comes up with an objection, rather than digging in specifically at just
Mhm.
asking why, just like a real blanket, lazy why on it.
Mm.
Sometimes, like for some types of objections, might work. For some of them, might just cheese the client off or the prospect off, because um, they'll start making a mountain out of a molehill. Oh,
Right.
why? Why don't I want to use your solution? Oh, well, let me count the ways, because now I have to rationalize this to you, and they'll rationalize,
Yeah.
and they'll rationalize, and uh, they'll get to a point where it's unrecoverable, right?
Yeah. Or even before the step of rationalizing, they just shell up, get defensive, say, "Why not?" End of call. Again, you just lost it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I guess the like people want to talk to people that they can collaborate with to solve a problem, and include salespeople. So if you're asking questions and making statements and trading information and requesting information back and forth,
Mm,
that prospect's going to be more likely to respect you and want to know more about what you've got to offer. Whereas if you're just only asking questions, they're the only ones offering up information. You're never like there's never a back and forth and it
mhm.
doesn't feel collaborative. You're not going to get very far with them.
Right. So instead of asking something like simple as why, you could ask, "Oh, well, why did you choose to do this or that? Or why is it that this, is concerning to you? It sounds important. Can you just tell me a story about why that concern is so important to you?" Would that
Yeah,
be a
and
little better?
maybe they'll vent about someone in procurement or
Mm,
accounting, or like, I can't do this unless this happens. And then you find the true objection, not the one that was sitting on the surface that they gave you off the hop. And that's a really great place to be, because then you're in a better position just to help solve the problem.
right. And that kind of goes back to another experience I have prospecting in sales, which is that some people just will object without knowing why they're even objecting. And so it's that process of getting under the surface, just like you said,
Mm,
of finding
yeah,
where the real objection is, like where the real need is, where the real problem is, not necessarily just the defensive, performative, no, I don't want to have this conversation.
exactly.